said you had no appetite. And you asked me if I prepared a present for you, and then you said we should get divorced! Hello, I'm Bubs, I'm an artist, and I like to hear myself talk, but when I am not doing things related to all that, I spend a fair bit of time reading comics. Comics are what got me into art in a lot of ways, and it's what has kept me around past periods where I wanted to give up on it. And now that I make my own independent comics, I know how much hard work and thought needs to go into successfully putting together a comic. I find myself constantly inspired by my fellow creators and their unique styles, ideas, stories, and characters. I'd love to make a video just talking about some of my favorite comics or comic tropes, but that's not what this video is about. Instead of having a good time and talking about stuff I love, I'm here to complain about comics that I really want to like, but usually just steer clear of. That being pretty much anything in the romantasy genre. More specifically, I want to talk about why I tend to keep away and some more of the serious issues I see with the current state of things. While I do not claim to be an infallible speaker of absolute truth, I'm often a bit disappointed with the discourse that I personally see out there about these topics, which gives me a perfect excuse to yap about my own thoughts and opinions. Whether you end up agreeing with me or not, I hope that I can spark some interesting discussion about genres and tropes and stuff, or, maybe just be some pleasant background noise while you fold laundry or draw or something. Regardless, I think we should jump into the first thing we need to get out of the way. What is romantasy? While I'm sure most of the people that clicked into a video titled "The Problem with Romantasy" already know the answer to such a question, I would still like to make sure we're all on the same page here. Romantasy, for those that are unaware, is a portmanteau of the words romance and fantasy, and the genre itself is similarly just a blend of those two concepts. A lot of people will probably immediately think of the more modern presentation of these themes. Shape-shifting dragon knights, princesses reincarnated as the wife of her enemy, and fated werewolf mate bonds, that sort of thing. However, romantasy has actually existed as a genre for a long time throughout all types of media and coming from many different cultures. The classic fairy tales about cursed lovers, the ancient epics about heroes overcoming magic forces for the ones they love, or that one really cool book that Columbo reads to you while you're sick in bed. The sort of book talk era of romantic fantasy didn't quite crop up until Twilight entered the scene and popularized most of the tropes that the genre is known for today. Love or hate those horny fairies, romantasy stories aren't going anywhere. The genre, even in its modern and widely criticized presentation, is just super popular. Maybe the demand isn't coming from you specifically, but it's definitely coming from somewhere. And where there is demand, there will be people who come around to be the supply. Nowhere is that more true than in the world of webcomics. Romantasy in webcomics has pretty much been the most popular genre out there for years, consistently dominating the top rankings on webcomic hosting platforms like Webtoon and Tapas, the latter of which being my preferred site for reading comics and publishing my stuff. For a little empirical evidence, I went ahead and checked the genre tags for the top 50 most popular comics on Tapas on a given day. Of those 50 different series, only 10 of them were not explicitly categorized as romantasy, and only one of those non-romantasy titles managed to claim a top 10 spot. In other words, 80% of the most popular series on the site were romantasy series. I will be upfront in that it's not super clear to me how the site decides what is most popular. I didn't really see a consistent difference in subscribers or views from one ranking to the next, so I'm going to assume it has something to do with getting more attention in a shorter amount of time, like pretty much every other algorithm out there, which would also explain how the most popular tab seems to be shifting a lot from day to day. What I can say with certainty, however, is that they had quite a few millions of views racked up between all of them, so regardless of how you get to be the most popular, it's safe to say these types of series are bringing in traffic and are most certainly getting pushed by the site as a result. And I totally get it. I was an avid reader of these sorts of stories as a teen, and in fact, still enjoy plenty of comics that qualify as romantasy even now. I completely understand why other people would find the concept behind these types of stories to be exciting or interesting, and I also completely understand why many artists would be inspired to create their own stories within the genre, considering how high the demand for them happens to be. However, as time has gone on, the thing that happens to pretty much any genre that gets that popular is that the market has gotten a little oversaturated. I am not the first human to say that the romantasy genre in webcomics is oversaturated. It's up to you to determine if that's because it's an ice-cold take and or if I am not a human. There are hundreds and hundreds of recent romantasy comics out there on Webtoon and Tapas both, and it seems like every day there's a handful of new ones that launch and almost immediately jump to the top of the rankings. There is so much content from this genre getting pushed at people all the time that I would probably get fatigued by it if I actually tried to keep up. That being said, I think it's usually kind of a weak criticism to look at the numbers and just assume things are oversaturated. Firstly, I feel like people start talking about a genre being oversaturated anytime something gets popular at all, and I think that's super annoying. I kind of hate how some folks act like something is automatically terrible the second it is no longer super niche. It's just a toxic mindset that will make it way harder for you to find community, but that's a different topic for a different day. So, back on track with a second and much more important point, I think it's unfair to act like no one is allowed to tread ground that someone else has already tread. This is partially to do with the fact that, technically, every single piece of ground has already been tread. We live in a world where movies like Velocipaster exist, so I think we need to be honest that most bases of storytelling have already been covered in some way. And if the standard is just that you can't do something that's already been done at all, no one would be allowed to make art ever again. On the other hand, though, I do not agree with the common sentiment that there's no such thing as an original thought. Creatives have been taking inspiration from something since art has existed. That is kind of the whole point. You observe or experience something and then try to express it through visuals or words or whatever your chosen medium is. If being inspired by something else was the determining factor in whether something could be considered an original work, even the earliest cave paintings couldn't be original, because what was depicted took inspiration from real events and experiences of the people who created it. What makes art unique to a person is simply the fact that they're the one making it. Even if this sounds a bit too lofty, every single person has a slightly different perspective and therefore will have a slightly different voice when they create. And this is no more clear than when you look at different adaptations of the same source content. Look at all the different versions of superhero comics, books like Les Miserables or Alice in Wonderland, the many different adaptations of the Bible. Some of the most interesting and unique pieces of media that I've seen lately are either inspired by or are straight up retellings of other stories, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case for you too. I will happily entertain conversations about whether a piece of media leans a little too heavily on source material to stand up on its own, or whether a new adaptation of something adds enough to the conversation to be worth your time, or just whether or not we actually like something. But attempting to police what is and is not okay to take inspiration from is goofy to say the least and completely pointless to say the most. And yet, I say the genre is oversaturated because, in my opinion, it really truly is, at least in the moment. For me, quantity is certainly a factor, but seeing a bunch of people pop on a popular train is not enough for me to sling the word around. No. For me, it's more about how similar new entries happen to be to pre-existing or even coexisting entries, and how much they actually bring in terms of unique creative value, or, in other words, how tropey the genre is. It's fucking insane. Like, they're all black hair, red eyes, black hair, red eyes. Oh, he doesn't have red eyes, but he still has black hair. He's so mysterious. Look at him. They're all framed the same. Okay, I know that it's romantic fantasy. If you have this shape, it's not a bad thing to frame your guys together, but like the fact they all so many of them have pink hair. I bet this is a scary duke. Let's click in. Oh no, he's the prince. They're either a duke or a prince. After transmigrating into her favorite, oh, it's one of fucking these. Oh my god. would have crumbled under Gilbert's pressure and accepted his proposal. But Miss Kim, who can't... It's also... Why is it that if the beautiful woman is acknowledged to be beautiful and people like her, that she sucks? That is always how this goes. This is not how women are! Dude, at least Webtoon has yaoi sometimes. Before I get into the next bit here, we've hit the algorithmically ideal spot to ask you to like this video and leave a comment if you're enjoying yourself so far. If you're new here, maybe you'd even consider subscribing to the channel to see more in the future. All that stuff is free for you, but helps out me and my channel a ton by telling YouTube that there are actual real people viewing this content, so I'd really appreciate that. Also, if you're one of those people that hates when I interrupt my videos like this, I also would rather not do this, but it actually does boost engagement, and I have some vet bills on the horizon, so I'll do what I gotta do, and we're all just gonna have to suck it up, yeah? Now, let's get back to the video. Tropey. Adjective, containing a lot of or too many tropes. Cambridge Dictionary. Did that make me sound professional? Yeah? No? Doesn't matter, moving on. Genres by their very nature are breeding grounds for tropes. Themes, settings, character archetypes, even story structure can all characterize what makes a genre, so you are going to end up with a lot of similar ideas between all the things in the genre. Those similar ideas will serve as inspiration for other people, and then again, and over until, boom, you end up on TV tropes. This is not actually a bad thing, if you ask me. Despite what you may believe if you have skimmed the titles of some of my videos, trope is not a dirty word to me at all. There are certainly tropes that I do not like. No! No! Not again! Not again! No! It didn't have to be this way! It didn't have to be this way! Yeah, I really do not like some tropes, and I will not hide the fact that I am especially biased against most of the popular tropes in the space right now. I am irritated by love corners, I carry disdain for reincarnations into fictional worlds, I hate pretty much all the common character archetypes, I am not a fan of long-winded expository dumps, and I do not see the appeal in quote-unquote dark romance. This stuff isn't for me. Still, liking or not liking a trope is completely subjective. I will love ones you hate, and you will hate ones I love, because everybody has their own biases. Tropes are neutral tools that rise from people finding something that works, and using them isn't a bad thing inherently, especially if they are deeply integrated into the genre that you're operating within. Still, in my opinion, you can overdo it. You can over-rely on them. If you want to create your own stories and you are going to take away anything from this video, the most important question to ask yourself throughout your process is why? Why is this my chosen setting? Why is this society the way they are? Why does my character pursue this specific goal? Why is this a plot point I am devoting time to? These sorts of questions will help guide you in fleshing out your world building and characters and plot, and can even keep you more honest about whether you are holding on to something for the right reasons. I am definitely the type of writer that gets carried away with adding more and more to something because I get excited, but I will usually realize later on that some of that stuff just does not serve a real purpose beyond being something that I thought was cool at the time. There's no design function or narrative function or thematic function, it's just empty calories, which is fine in small doses, both in the metaphorical sense and the real sense. But it's good to be aware of the distinction when you are trying to feed an audience. If most of what you're giving them to chew on has no real nutritional value, they are going to walk away unsatisfied, and that's where this tropiness thing comes in. When I look at the Romantasy stories on these webcomic platforms, I am asking why these tropes are present in the story, but rather than getting an answer back that is relevant to the plot or the characters, I feel like I get because it's trending right now, or because I like this trope, and that's not really satisfying at all. This is my problem with this stuff. It's to try and make it more relatable, I guess, because it's like, oh my god, wouldn't it be so cool if you got transported into the story that you like? But here's the thing that I have to say, is that not what you already do? You can project everything about yourself onto this character. You already have that. You're just adding this extra layer. It does nothing to the plot except for make it feel like it has less stakes. You have a character here that's very fascinating. If I consume a poison, it doesn't kill me for some reason. Why did that could have just been innate to this character? You didn't need to make this some situation where it's like, well, okay, it's this fictional universe where the character was gonna die, but when I, from the real world, get transported into the body of this person that's in this, like, novel world, then I can actually drink the poison and I'm just fine. Why couldn't that just be a part of the character themselves? It's also, like, they never actually commit to showing how fucking crazy and, like, reality shatter. This is a problem with fucking everything about these goddamn stories. But, like, you fucking died. This character died and was reborn and is basically just like, oh no, yeah, damn it, oh no, bummerino, I can't believe I died and now I'm in this fantasy land in this book. Like, that would completely break your sense of reality. Are you fucking kidding me? I want to get involved with your story, your characters, and your world, but it relies so heavily on the literary equivalent of buzzwords that everything feels very superficial and stale and predictable. When you scroll through this genre tab, the art style, the stories, the settings, the plots, the characters, the titles, everything is barely distinguishable from its neighbor. Dude, it's Webtoon 2. It's Webtoon 2. Webtoon also has pink hair lady, black hair man, usually with red eyes. It's the same shit. It is the same shit. I'm losing my mind. I thought my husband was supposed to die. Hey, look, I have black hair and you have pink hair. We should marry. Alice was a chef living in Korea when an explosion transported her into a novel. Write something different. How hard is it to just write about a person in a fantasy land that is just is in a fantasy world? The little lady behind the villain. An extra stole the male leads. Princess Evanescence saves herself. The lady needs a break. Lady Chef Royale. Country life with his sexy majesty. Amelia's opalescent marriage. Becoming a family with the Duke and his dear son. Just kill me now. And I think this is very intentional. Creating something that fits a niche is a great way to get your art noticed, gain a following, maybe earn some money. There is absolutely nothing wrong with trying to capitalize on something being popular, but I personally get very little out of stories that I can play trope bingo with. To think someone like that was once cursed. Okay, magic curse. I'm already checking it off. Can I still have hot and morally dubious Duke even if it's a prince? Like, there's overlap, right? I'm gonna put it because I can. It's my bingo. The unwanted child of House Flores. An illegitimate, okay, toxic family dynamic. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. Okay, ducal house, so technically there could be a hot and morally dubious Duke hanging around somewhere, okay? Also, I'm officially doing lots of exposition because this is getting fucking insane. I'm so bored. Damn it, I had Fate Bond on here earlier, but I took it off. Ugh. Honestly, I hate sitting here and speaking with authority that these comic authors are writing with tropes and trends in mind first and telling an actually interesting and satisfying story second, because I know that is insulting. I don't want to make it seem like there is no artistic merit in these stories. I've seen some genuinely beautiful art, some genuinely amazingly composed panels, some actually interesting concepts. I will give it to this comic, though. The way that they choose to frame some of these panels is just absolutely gorgeous. Like, this is very, very pretty. And I feel like when they have like little extra things like this, they're not like oppressive. The little sigh, like, and the little, like, that adds something to this panel, I feel like. It's not distracting me away from everything else. I like the little die, like, that's cute. That's cute. This panel is gorgeous. There is genuine, like, skill going into this comic. I am very impressed by the visuals here. I just wish that I liked the story more. Still, I can't get away from the feeling that these narratives aren't being constructed with the genuine intention of telling a story or earnestly exploring certain topics and themes. Even after recalling my past life in this fantasy world, nothing had really changed. Okay, then why the fuck is it part of the story? You're literally admitting that it has absolutely no impact on the story whatsoever. So why is it part of it? It is literally just, you're just trying to get the trope checklist. You just have a checklist of tropes and you're checking them off because it's popular. Maybe I feel this way because I'm biased against a lot of what is popular right now. I'm open to that being a possibility despite my genuine effort at fairness. Luckily, for the sake of this video, the oversaturation and tropiness is not actually the problem, though it is a big part of it. Unluckily, what I see as the problem is not nearly as fun to talk about. Before I continue, this video is going to be a little more serious here on out. I'm gonna try to keep things mostly light because there is enough dark stuff happening outside of this little YouTube bubble, and I understand that some of you could use a little respite from it. However, I want to handle this topic responsibly, and that means taking what I'm putting on screen right now a little more seriously. Please look at the screen if you're one of them crafters that's looking at your craft and not my dumb face. If mentions of any of this stuff is going to be upsetting to you, please take care of yourself. I'll see you some other time, and thank you for sticking around this long. I also need to add the heavy disclaimer that the rest of this video is going to contain some much more serious criticisms than simply, I don't enjoy this type of narrative. I'm gonna continue to show examples when and where appropriate, but I want to make it very clear that I am not trying to send hate in any particular direction. The people behind these comics are very often small creators that were commissioned to adapt a story written by someone else and published elsewhere, and they do not deserve widespread backlash just because I perceive some narrative decisions as dodgy and or inappropriate. Do not go and harass anybody. If you don't like the stuff I show to you, don't engage with it. It is that simple. I could not possibly be more serious about that. Be smart, good people. Alrighty. Finally, we come to the part of the video where I tell you what I think the problem with the romantasy genre is. And in simplest terms, there are a lot of genre tropes right now that I really don't think should be genre tropes. Okay, I think we're all babies. And so we're not raising this child to make out with them in the future. 'Cause they do that! There's stories that do that! Love that! My favorite plot line. I stand by what I said about tropes being neutral tools, but I also hold the opinion that there are certain tools that you need to handle with a level of care. Running around with a wrench in your hand is a lot lower stakes than running around with a chainsaw. Yet, in the space right now, it is so common to see folks carelessly running with the chainsaw that other people seem to be doing it too under the assumption that it's just a chill moment. But no, you can hurt people when you are not taking the right precautions and being responsible with how you use certain tools, and this is especially the case with sexual topics and sensitive content related to trauma. I'm not about to tell anybody that they are not allowed to write about certain topics. On the contrary, I absolutely hate when people try to dictate what other people can and cannot explore through writing, especially as it relates to mature and sensitive topics of any kind. Generally speaking, I am anti-censorship. We should not be ruling that certain things just ought not be delved into because you don't like it or it makes you uncomfortable. This is not to say that nobody is ever able to be criticized for making something that's genuinely objectionable. Freedom of speech and freedom of expression is not the same thing as freedom from consequences or right to a platform. Keep that in mind. But when we start to try and make actual legislation and rulings about what is and is not okay, there are going to be people that get caught in the crosshairs because there is no one criteria or specific ruling that can determine what kind of art deserves to exist. Instead, I am a very big advocate for thoughtful storytelling. If you are going to write about something and put it out for the world to see, you are allowed to do it, but you need to do so with that in mind. If you are going to be handling subject matter that could really have a negative impact on your audience if you screw it up, the responsible move is to make sure you are doing your research, you are being careful, and you are being respectful. And when it comes time to publish your work, you are ensuring that you are transparent about what others will be exposed to if they choose to engage. This applies to anything from dark comedies to straight up smut to really serious dramas. Can you mess up anyways? Yeah, but more often than not, good intentions will shine through even when you mess up. And as long as you are trying your best and you are willing to learn from your mistakes and take feedback, you're fine enough in my book. Also, if you're one of the people in the camp of it's all fiction, so it's not that deep, yes, it is. The narrative in question could be fiction, but it is being made by a real person, presumably, and is being seen by real people. And if you can't understand how a real person could be impacted by any art, positive or negative, I have to assume that you have never once connected with a single piece of media in your entire life, and I honestly don't know how you made it this far in the video, or even got onto this channel in the first place. That rhetoric is so beyond exhausting, and I haven't had a good opportunity to complain about it until now, but it's finally out of my system. We continue. Yeah, wow, it's so funny when a little baby child like wishes harm upon her abusers. That's really funny. That's like a really cool little moment and with a little cute little scream grab. Okay, I do like it that it's a little scream. I morally object to the way that this topic is being handled, but that's funny. I feel like a lot of these more problematic genre tropes do not fall under thoughtful storytelling. As I said before, a lot of the things I see pop up in Romantasy tabs are very surface-level grab bags of whatever is popular without much more beneath it. That's perfectly excusable when the things that are popular are accidental kisses and enemies to lovers, but when you are treating things like childhood trauma with that same level of casualness, I'm gonna raise an eyebrow. These are massive comics that are being seen by millions of people and probably make a ton of money considering that a lot of them use pay-to-read models. I would hope that a creator with that big of a platform would be a little more responsible than a high schooler on DeviantArt, and I don't think that's crazy to say. Let's get a little more specific though, because come on, this is a video that I'm making, of course I have specific things to say, I'm me. This next little section was by far the most difficult one to write because YouTube probably won't like it. I worked very hard to self-censor, so YouTube, please be nice to me. The topic of discussion here is actually something I've lightly brushed against on my channel before. If you saw the video where I first suggested I make this video, actually, some of these talking points will be familiar to you. I'll go ahead and start in the same way. I love spicy art. Whether it's fan art, original characters, individual illustrations, comics, graphic novels, animations, even short films, I enjoy a good 18+ piece of work. A good part of that is because I'm just kind of an openly down bad individual. Look at her titties! Look at his titties! But an equal part of my enjoyment is because A lot of that stuff is just really good. NSFW artists are just as valid as any other artist out there, and in many cases need to have a much greater grasp of things like anatomy, perspective, texture, and physics to meet the expectations of their audience. I think it's pretty ridiculous how stigmatized that stuff is in the art space, considering the insane skill required, and it's a shame how it is so often pushed away from the mainstream. That said, I obviously acknowledge that it is very important to make sure that content stays away from people that either should not be seeing it or just don't want to. There's a fair bit of responsibility on the individual consumer there, or in some cases the consumer's legal guardians, but a creator should be responsible with tagging their content correctly, not just as mature, but what flavor of mature it happens to be. Otherwise, people can't steer clear of things they want to steer clear of. I'm gonna even tack on something that might be pretty controversial. This should extend to more softcore presentations of mature content. I am not gonna try and establish specific criteria as to what determines your particular spice level, but if you are indulging in a particular taboo, shall we say, you should probably give people a heads up, even if it's more suggestive than anything. It is still sexual content. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Hopefully I can get a bingo before it makes me try to pay for this, because I don't want to... What in the... fish? He's wearing a muzzle! None of this seems to be tagged as mature. Okay. That's not your neck. That's not where your neck is, bestie. Wasn't that what you said, dear author? Oh my god. It's another fucking... transmigration, whatever. This is just plain... I just got here and you're already giving me your fucking biting fit. Hold on. Is this... Viewer discretion is advised. This series contains themes regarding child abuse that may not be suitable for all readers. Okay, well I didn't get to that part. Lady Iris, don't you think you're a little too quick to accept the fact that you've essentially sold yourself? I understand your desire to escape your family, but House Green is not in any way the safe haven you're imagining. You could die at any moment. That's what it means to have a werebeast for a husband. Oh, are they gonna make little werewolf babies? Okay, this one though? This one? Rated mature. Very good. That's a win. Webtoon, keep winning, bestie. Yeah, it's not an exaggeration to say that there are certain taboos that act as genre tropes. Prolific genre tropes. I wasn't showing you my back, I was just getting you some water. My instinct doesn't your instinct? Look, that is a gorgeous back. This is good art. Just don't show me your back. It's hard to resist. Ah, I hate this thing. I hate how we always do this. It's always, oh my god, my beastly instincts, my demon instincts, my werewolf instincts. I can hardly restrain myself. That's not sexy! That's not sexy! Okay, not to me. It might be sexy to some people, but hey, maybe tag your content. Maybe tag your content that this is a thing that you're going to do, because it just makes me vastly uncomfortable. This is not tagged as mature. This is not a series that is tagged as mature. It is very common to see age gaps, size difference, breeding, power imbalance, forced proximity, more breeding, monster stuff. Oh my god, please stop impregnating each other. Without divulging too much about myself, some of those taboos are a-okay in my book. More than a-okay, perhaps. Others, I'm not personally a fan. You do not get bonus points for figuring out which is which. Regardless, I'm not about to yuck anybody's yum. No one is weird or bad for wanting to explore their niches in a safe fictional environment, even if those niches wouldn't be super healthy if they played out exactly that way in real life. Newsflash, that's literally what all of fiction does. It would be horrific to be a superhero tasked with saving the world from murderous aliens, or a medieval knight tasked with slaying a dragon to save a princess, or a secret agent tasked with saving the world from murderous aliens again. But they are fun to experience vicariously through fictional characters nonetheless. Frankly, the trend where people seem to forget that little factoid when they notice that large swaths of women are openly expressing their sexuality feels like it's motivated by misogyny, and we will not be inviting that kind of rhetoric in here. No, no, no. Still, it absolutely can be weird and bad if you are the creator of the fictional environment and you are exploring your niche in front of others without warning. It doesn't matter if there isn't bare ass on the screen. I did not consent to participate in your special interest in baby making, and I'd rather you not make it so easy for that interest to be stumbled upon by minors when they try to read your supposedly safe for work comic. Thank you very much. Wait, you're not supposed to admit to it! You're not supposed— I feel like if I was 13, I shouldn't be sitting in on this fucking conversation! I'll be honest. As much as I wish the creators of these things wouldn't shove this stuff into their works willy-nilly like they do, it is important to acknowledge this has a lot more to do with the limitations of these platforms than a fault of individual creators. I want to be super fair to this particular comic. It is labeled as young adult, and I think on Webtoon, young adult is supposed to mean 16 and older. Honestly, I would think that that's a fair rating. I don't think that Webtoon will, actually say, hey, you can't look at this if the age that you put in is younger than that. However, that's not as much as my issue, because here's my thing. You can lie super easy on the internet what your age is, and quite frankly, that is not the fault of an individual creator or even the platform if you lie, and the only way to absolutely ensure that you're not lying is to be incredibly invasive and just ask for your ID and shit, and I don't agree with that. I think that that sort of legislation is just a really dangerous thing. Parents should just be doing a better job actually monitoring what their kids are accessing on the internet. It's pretty simple. What my problem is that, young adult can mean so many different things, and there's no way to actually, specify exactly what is in there. So if I'm trying to be hey, is this thing appropriate for my child to be looking at? That might be fine for my 13-year-old. This one that says young adult might not be fine for my 13-year-old. It's the same thing with books. As much as I'm being very big and reactionary, I don't blame the actual author in this particular regard. I just wish that Webtoon offered a little bit more options for creators to actually tag their content. There's not actual content flares of individually, this is exactly the thing that could be a little bit more on the mature side or a little bit more sensitive. It's just a general, what about age bracket should this be in? And I don't think that's enough. I just don't think that's enough. The fact that you are either kid and ad friendly or 18 plus and therefore banished off the algorithm on a lot of sites will obviously instill a reluctance in people to say, yes, there is mature content here. I definitely do not speak from experience. YouTube, please, I am begging you, do not take me out back. I've been a very good boy. What I'm saying is, while this is a problem in my perception, I think this is a nuanced situation. So as much as I dislike it, and as much as it is a reason I stay away from the genre, overall, I am willing to give people a pass on this one. I am not calling for mass censorship of the horny shape-shifting princes. They're fine. It's whatever. The next stuff, though, yeah, no, I'm not giving people a pass. There may not be many mature content tags, but there are certainly lots and lots of content warnings. I'm not a fan of just how many I click into and they start with a bunch of content warnings. This is a lot! This is a lot! Why does everything need this? Content advisory, child abuse. You shouldn't have. Oh my god, domestic violence and side. We're really shaking it up this time, y'all. Oh. I should have known! I should have just fucking assumed that we would get domestic violence. It's actually a really good thing that these content warnings exist, even if it seems that the vast majority of them were actually added by the site and not the creators themselves. If you're going to delve into sensitive topics, you should be disclaiming that, point blank period. That said, I take it as a bit of a red flag that every other story I click into immediately dives into really serious topics like domestic abuse or suicide or certain criminal activities of elite billionaires. It is a red flag that such horrible, traumatic events seem to be genre tropes. I know why it is happening. It is very common in these stories to have a character that starts in a terrible situation and is saved and brought into a better situation. I mean, in plenty of cases, they're actually just brought into a different brand of terrible situation, but I digress. This Cinderella sort of plotline isn't a bad thing on its own, and there's obviously something appealing in watching a tortured character improve their life. Everyone wants that, to overcome their problems and find happiness and safety. This common theme means that a lot of stories will involve some pretty touchy subjects, which isn't actually a bad thing. Exploring touchy subjects is allowed, and there is not a limit to how many people get to do so. However, I think that you can agree, it could be an issue if plots involving abusive households, for example, are treated with the same sort of trope checklist vibe that an enemies to lovers plot is. What? Sienna, how did you— oh my god. It's poison, isn't it? This is why it had the content warning. Sorry, Lorena, I don't think I'll be able to give you the satisfaction. I don't know if this is something that we all just need to be reminded of, but there's actually nothing super cool and badass about, like, killing yourself. Why do we keep doing this? Why do we keep having these badass moments where these heroines, they'll, like, take their life or they'll threaten to take their life, and it's treated so fucking— oh, and she's dying right now, so I bet she's about to get reincarnated. She's about to get reincarnated. Watch it, watch it, watch it. Hold on. Wait, hold on. Should I be relieved that I was able to do what I wanted in my last moments? This is translated. I'm really hoping that that dialogue is a little less, just like that my world ended and it restarted. Yep. Yep. No. I had hoped this was the end. Okay, cool. Edgy tropes have existed for a long time. Heroes with dead parents, bullies with toxic families, burned witches, suicide victim turned ghost, molester uncle, you name it. Horrible stuff gets hawked around as narrative devices and even jokes all the time, and I'm fine with that. I love edgy characters, and I love dark humor, because art is one of the greatest tools for expressing and processing one's emotions, and there are few things more emotionally charged than trauma. These topics can really enrich a narrative and give so much to an audience when done right, and that comes down to the why again. Why is this included in the story? If the answer is that there's a genuine attempt being made to explore a sensitive topic, or maybe it's explaining how my characters ended up with the traits that they did, or that we're making fun of and therefore reducing the power of abusive people, I am on board. If the answer is because everyone else is doing it right now, or because I wanted my story to feel more serious, or because I needed to make the male romantic lead look less abysmal by comparison, I have to be honest, I'm not sure I'd buy that you have a lot of respect for the subject matter you are messing with right now. The orphanage directors and teachers are embezzling funds. It seemed that way. They abused us, and they're even talking to a pimp. Okay. Throwing a dun here feels really, really in poor taste. How cute! Cheese. Oh my god, I feel like we're not handling this with a whole lot of tact. Okay, I feel like I just shouldn't even be reading this. I'm gonna be so real. I'm sorry. Maybe it's best to just overlook a little suggestive content in a place where it's actually kind of expected that you'll see some suggestive content, especially if the alternative is a site cracking down on censorship, because that never, ever goes well. But I do not feel the same about such widespread, blatant mishandling of such serious and triggering content. It's not a tagging issue, it's just irresponsible writing, casually including a plot point about how an orphanage is funneling kids into sex slavery just so you can show a character to be a badass with a really strong sense of justice despite his cold disposition is not actually what I would call a tactful approach to something that is genuinely worse than murder. I will hold space for the possibility that the dialogue better expresses the gravity of this situation in the original translation, but I have my doubts considering what the visuals are. Oh, and if you think that this must be some kind of one-off gaffe when I was exposed to that little scene, this comic held the #1 spot in its genre. Therefore, it is ostensibly a poster child for its genre, or at least that version of it that you'll get from this particular site. I can sense some potential criticism. Bubs, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Sure, these are serious topics, and sure, the way some of these stories handle these topics may come across a little insensitive, but surely anyone who it would really harm isn't reading it anyway. You said yourself, all of this stuff has content warnings, so the people that could be really upset by it wouldn't read it anyways. To that, I shall point out that downplaying serious topics like this, especially on platforms that are commonly visited by impressionable teenagers, is kind of an issue regardless of whether or not the viewers have experienced trauma. More importantly, however, I need everyone to remember that a content warning isn't a sign that says, if you have trauma related to this subject, keep out. That's not what it is. It is a heads up that if you are sensitive to the topic, you will encounter that topic, and from there, you are able to decide whether or not you are up for what lies beyond. Unless your content warning says, hey, I think a character struggling with suicidal ideation is kind of quirky, it doesn't cut it for me. I know that I'm getting very heated. I know that I'm probably a little more heated than I should be. Not taking serious things very seriously is not a unique trait of these comics, and I honestly wouldn't be that heated if it was just one random comic doing this. But it's not. The top comics are doing this, comics with millions of views, because comics before them had set the precedent that an abused heroine is the ideal romantic lead, but more specifically that you don't actually need to commit to depicting just how much these experiences shape your everyday life. If that is what they were doing, I would not have a problem with it. I really wouldn't. But they try to make it cute instead of harmful coping mechanisms or trust issues or really any real damage. She's just a little shy and, oh no, she doesn't believe that she's beautiful. Good thing the male lead is there to make all those insecurities magically disappear. As clearly upset as I am with all of this, and as genuinely appalled as I was while reading some of these comics, to the point where I felt the need to completely rewrite this script several times, I still find myself with very little animosity towards the individual creators. And I'm serious about that. That's because the real problem with the romantasy genre is not just that there's content here that is not being treated with the care. I really think it should be, for the sake of keeping up with trends. The real problem that I think affects pretty much every creative on the internet right now is that people are incentivized to do that. The internet, and more specifically social media, is one of the best things to ever happen to artists. Never before in history have people been able to expose their work to an audience so instantaneously at such a large scale. It makes indie creation across all mediums so much more viable, which means a more diverse market than ever before, because you no longer have to go through the filter of old publishing studios with outdated standards and fear of risk just to get a chance for people to connect with your work. This is most certainly the case for webcomics. Comics are a historically niche medium, and the fact that they are so popular nowadays, thanks in no small part to platforms like Webtoon and Tapas, is genuinely awesome. And while I do think there is a tropiness issue going on with Romantasy, that doesn't mean all comics are all the same, nor is this even the case for every Romantasy comic out there.
This one must be popular already since it's full.
Mosquito Torture Club! She's kinda cute! Oh no! No, do I like this one? That is such a real feeling too. That's so real. She's relatable! She's a relatable queen! Idiot, never heard of a name tag. I like her! I'm gonna like this comic. I'm legitimately, hold on. I wanna fucking read this. That all said, the internet is not designed with artists in mind. It just is not. Social media algorithms want you to post lots of stuff frequently and consistently. It makes sense because if you keep people on the platform, they want to put you in front of more people because that'll make money. If you post a lot of stuff frequently and consistently, you're more likely to keep people on the platform. That's just how the cookie crumbles. But that's not fantastic for most creatives. For those unaware, art in general certainly takes a long time. Comics in particular are a lot of art. It's a lot of illustration, a lot of writing, a lot of world building, probably a good bit of character design. I've already thoroughly covered that whole topic elsewhere on my channel, so I won't repeat myself, but even the simplest of comics are going to take you a while to prep and put out. There are also the dangers of burnout and creative blocks that might force you into a several-month-long hiatus that was really only supposed to last over the holidays, and you really do keep meaning to get back into it, but now you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to make the first page back really good, so you keep stalling and psyching yourself out in an endless cycle of anxiety and guilt and imposter syndrome. Hypothetically, my point here is that it's very hard for the vast majority of artists to keep up with social media algorithms. It's just not very sustainable. Pretty much any artist will tell you that, and similarly, pretty much any artist will tell you that hopping on a trend is one of the easiest ways to not fade away into obscurity. I am one such artist that will tell you that. Unfortunately, even media platforms that are designed for art are not fully exempt from this. Sure, they often have some more flexible discoverability features that offer newcomers to a scene a chance to get more eyes on them. They have built-in hiatus announcements. It's definitely a more accommodating environment, but if you want to get noticed, your best chance still is to lean into ideas and topics that are already popular, and in the case of Romantasy, some of what is already popular just happens to be problematic. This is why I'm not mad at the creators of these comics. To be honest, I'm not really mad at these platforms for wanting to turn a profit from the services they provide to creators. I'm not mad at the people who read and enjoy this content either. I don't really know who or what I'm mad at in this particular case, nor am I sure I even have a proposed solution to all of this. This is a situation where there is a lot of nuance and room for multiple viewpoints, and at this point, I'm not even sure I know how to conclude this video. But I do know that if you found a webcomic that is not getting the attention that you think it deserves, I want to hear about it. I'm serious. It doesn't have to be specifically Romantasy, though it can be. I'm always on the lookout for new things to read, and considering the most popular tabs aren't doing me any favors, I am very open to recommendations, so leave some in the comments, please. Maybe before too long I can make a video celebrating all the cool stuff out there rather than lamenting the stuff I wish was a little less prevalent. Maybe by lifting up things that sidestep what I consider to be problems, we can encourage a bit of positive change in the space. Who knows? Regardless, I think it's about time to wrap up. I know that this video was probably kind of a roller coaster. I hope that the rewrites were not too evident, and even if they were, that you just had a good time. I really appreciate you sticking around all the way to the end, and even though I am super tired right now, I really hope I was able to make it worth your while. Seriously though, it means a lot to me that people actually want to listen to the things I have to say, so thank you. My channel members also mean a lot to me, which is why you can see their names scrolling by on screen now. These lovely folks truly go above and beyond to support me and my channel, and it is so appreciated. So massive thank you to all of them. Yeah, that's all I've got for now. I'll go ahead and sign off, let you go. Make sure you're drinking water, attending to your personal hygiene as best you can, and most importantly, and I mean this more than ever, remember that you matter. Bye. This fucking video, man. This has been a whole ass process, let me tell you.